Pringle looking towards Agard. Ravel, ambitious, but brilliant! I don't believe it! I swear I do not believe it! And they are back on terms!
Hello and welcome again to the Scouting Report through New York Talk, where today we are looking ahead to our first South Yorkshire derby of the season, the Sheffield Wednesday come to New York Stadium. It's going to be hopefully an exciting game. Hopefully for us it's going to work out well, but we're going to find out a bit more about Sheffield Wednesday that we don't already know. We're local clubs, so we know quite a lot anyway, but we'll I've got Mick and Danny with us, joining us from the Rotherham side.
Hello. Hello.
And we have Alex Miller from the Sheffield Star joining us to tell us about Sheffield Wednesday. Thanks for joining us, Alex.
Absolute pleasure, lads. Thanks for having me on.
So like we said, we local team, we did Morecambe the other day in Plymouth. I don't know anything about those type of teams. Sheffield Wednesday and Rotherham know a lot about each other. But pre-season's been an interesting time for Wednesday with the transfer embargo and money issues. Well, not money issues, but issues with paying players throughout the last season. How has pre-season actually gone once it got underway properly?
It was split into two halves, really. It was very, very slow and very, very concerning for a long time. A lot of talk about whether Wednesday would basically be lining up with a team of untried players. Barry Bannon did an interview about halfway through the Euros with BBC Scotland where he was very honest in voicing his concern over the direction of the club. And then all of a sudden, everything seemed to take off. The players got paid. Number of transfers. I mean, they've had 13 transfers through the door. Some of them sort of more high profile than others, but certainly there's a huge wave of fresh feeling at Wednesday. All the doom and gloom that has been the last couple of years. It's early days, but seems to have been lifted a little bit, and certainly the start that they've had in the league so far has been pretty encouraging. So, yeah, it just feels a little bit like Wednesday turning a little bit of a corner, and the pre-season and the weeks running into the season were sort of the catalyst for that. So busy time for the likes of me and all the mugs in the local media, sort of running around trying to work out what's going on. But certainly a more positive few weeks than the ones we've been covering over the last couple of years.
I've got to ask about Chansiri. As Sheffield Wednesday fans will know more than we do, but it seems an interesting character. From the outside, it looks like the money was there initially because anybody knows he obviously had issues paying players, and then as soon as the threat of a points deduction came in, suddenly everybody got paid fine, and everything so far has been nice and rosy. What's your view on that sort of process and that change in everybody getting paid when it got serious in terms of points deduction?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think that, there is this theory sort of humming about, in football circles, isn't there? Like this rumor about the fact that he was just holding on to it, and I'm not sure that's necessarily the case. We certainly had a couple of whispers about some business deals that he had going on that sort of went through, and while that's certainly not enough. Like I say, that's conjecture to a certain point of view. It's not been enough for us to report on, but that those whispers have been there. So yeah, I think any suggestion that he was just holding on to this money for some sort of spite towards ex-players or something like that, it doesn't feel like Chansiri's style. There's obviously a big view of the way he does things and certain things that he's done in the past, but his love for the club and his loyalty to players certainly has been quite steadfast throughout his time at Sheffield Wednesday. There's the two things that I don't think anyone, for all the ills and all the underperforming that perhaps he's done, at certain stages through his premiership, his love for the club and loyalty to players can't sort of be argued, I don't think. So, yeah, it's an interesting one, and it'll probably be one that comes out in the wash in a few years to come.
It's interesting you say that, Alex, about his love for the club and love for the players. It's looking at it from the outside and trying to be as impartial as possible under the circumstances, which can be quite difficult.
I didn't know you were being partial.
No, I'm going to try to be. Obviously, we've all been football fans a long, long time, and we've seen these kind of situations up and down the country and we as a club have been through financial difficulties ourselves over the years, and I'm trying to rack my brains to think back that when has one ever really turned round and come good, you know, from the situation that Sheffield Wednesday were in a season a bit ago, the issue with the ground, the issue with non-payment of players, etc., all those sort of red flags, if you like. I can't, in my memory, bring to mind a similar sort of situation because they're all pretty much similar somewhere along the lines. I can't remember one turning round. Do you? I mean, what do you think? Do you think it's likely to? Do you think it's just been a bit naive over the past few years, or is there something more to it?
Are you talking in terms of the financial situation at the club or the relationship?
Yeah, I guess I'm talking in terms of Chansiri.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, he owns the ground now, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So if he walks away, Sheffield Wednesday don't have any assets as such, or any major assets other than
players. I mean, he's always maintained. I don't want to come across as a Chansiri apologist, because I think any Wednesday fans watching this would certainly say, I've been, as we all have really in the local media, we have held him to task on certain things over the last couple of years. But for a start, in terms of the stadium, which is a major concern with a lot of Sheffield Wednesday fans, and as it should be, he's always maintained, well, I own the football club, I own the stadium. That there's no suggestion that, if I was to sell the football club, it wouldn't be with the stadium as well. You never know what might happen in the future if there's some bad blood. But for now, certainly, I don't think that's too much of an issue, because when I say that about his love for the football club, I do believe it's genuine. We've spoken to him a number of times. It is genuine. You just look at the amount of money that he's put into the football club over the years. It sort of bears fruit on that. In terms of the relationship between the very top of the club and the supporters, obviously when everything was going good and Wednesday were in. That's the way of football, and things have turned, and there obviously has been mismanagement. There is a fairly strong feeling that I wouldn't argue with. Excuse me, that Chansiri basically rolled the dice on, in terms of FFP, in terms of getting into the Premier League, and obviously it failed fairly spectacularly. Now, what we've seen over the last few weeks, and it is early days in this sort of new dawn, if you want to call it that, with Wednesday, is that I think Darren Moore, at a football level, has been given, I don't know whether a lot more control, but certainly he seems to be driving things from everything from the pre-match music at Hillsborough. Darren Moore's wanted it louder, and he wanted Sheffield bands on and this sort of thing. He's been given autonomy on all sorts of things that previous managers probably haven't done. And so I think that's been a big uptick, and perhaps there is a feeling that they've appointed a COO called Liam Dooley, who's been at the club for a little while, a Sheffield Wednesday fan that cares deeply about the club, and I think has been driving things like season ticket prices, the hospitality at Hillsborough. A lot of it was empty for years and years and years. Well, that's nearly at capacity. So there's been a big drive on that. So there are certain things at the club that have been, left to ruin a little bit. And have been left to rot maybe for a couple of years, while the focus was all on trying to get the club into the Premier League, that just appeared to be turning around a little bit. Now, as I say, it's early days, very early days. We are literally probably a couple of months into this conversation. But, the more optimistic Wednesday fan would look at it and say, well, maybe Chansiri's learnt a lesson. Maybe he stepped back a little bit. Maybe he'd argue that, the circumstances are allowing him to do a bit more, because the financial constraints on trying to build a team to get promoted out of League One are less hairy than in the Championship. But yeah, there's certainly a mountain of things happening at the minute. But like I say, there is a sense of good feeling at the club. In terms of, I wrote a thing a few months ago on the model that could follow. When a relationship between an owner and the fan base gets really quite toxic. I'm not sure it got quite that bad with Chansiri. Obviously, the fans weren't in the stadium, so reading stuff on Twitter not always the best barometer. But the one I'd go for is Venky's at Blackburn, which obviously, if you remember with Steve Keane and their tumble out of the Premier League, they took a step back. Ended up just putting in money basically from India and put good football people, Tony Mowbray and people like that in charge of the club. And I saw a poll, one of our colleagues over in Lancashire, I think it was Lancashire Live. I think 90% of Blackburn fans would welcome Venky's back in the stadium now. So, I mean, that's a remarkable turnaround. And so it has been done. As you said, I think it probably is quite rare. I'm going to say it again, it's very, very early days. Now, I'm not going to go on record and say that everything's bright and rosy Wednesday, but yeah, it's been an encouraging month or so. So I've rambled houses, but
it's all right, Alex. That's how we're going to quote you anyway. I'm only kidding.
It is an interesting point, though. Do you reckon Rotherham fans would welcome the Booth family back into the stadium?
Probably not.
And a hush filled the room. That was slightly different, weren't it? That was slightly different because there was a parting of the waves, and following the parting of the waves, it went even more pear-shaped than it did prior to it, didn't it? So
yeah, that would also change from Ken Booth to the family of the Booths, weren't it? Ken Booth was the man in charge who was tight but a decent chairman. Then reportedly his sons struck that deal, weren't it, for the stadium that killed us off anyway. Best
thing that ever happened to us as a club, though, ultimately, isn't it?
In the end,
hindsight,
You know, so certainly in my lifetime.
Yeah. Let's move on to the on-the-pitch stuff. When Darren Moore got appointed late last season, as a Rotherham fan, I was disappointed because it looks a really, really good appointment. It ticks all the boxes of a good footballing guy. He's got good connections in the game and everything like that. And I know you end up getting relegated, but there were positive signs. As soon as he came in, there were positive signs from him and the footballing side of things straight away, weren't there? It felt like it.
Yeah, I think so. I think, it took a few of us as a surprise. We got the story quite late in terms of any sniff of it at all. And following on from sort of Gary Monk, Steve Bruce, Gary Monk, Tony Pulis, it felt like there was a certain profile of manager that the club were going for, and Darren Moore was a bit outside of that box. But obviously wasn't able to keep the club up. There was no sort of new manager bounce. Excuse me again, sorry. The back end of last season, obviously, it was quite badly damaged by the fact that he contracted COVID and was, in intensive care for a short period. It got really quite hairy. So yeah, Wednesday went down on the last day of the season, which I'm sure you guys remember.
And no need for that.
It just we're in the same position, That's not a gloat at all. But yeah, it like I said before, it just feels like things are turning around. The caliber of player that Wednesday brought in, and again, I'll caveat it with how many leagues have been won on paper in pre-season, but they've done really well. There appears to be a number of players there that are championship players, really, and have played in the championship for a number of years. And with a manager like Darren Moore, it just feels like there might well be a promotion push somewhere in this team. That, quite frankly, 6 weeks ago, I never thought I'd be speaking about Sheffield Wednesday in this position.
Yeah. Neither did any of us. Yeah. One of the key bits of transfer business wasn't transfer business, it's keeping Barry Bannon. I don't like to admit it, but he is clearly one of the best midfielders in League One. And if there is to be a promotion push, he will be absolutely key to that, won't he? Yeah,
he already has been in the 3 games. And I think you can just see he's been afforded a little bit more space in the game so far. And if you give space to Barry Bannon, you're going to have a tough afternoon. You say he's one of the best midfielders in League One. He's certainly one of the best midfielders in the Championship. He has been for years. You look at the number of chances created and all the rest of it. And I think what Moore's done well as well is he's brought in midfield colleagues for him. They're playing in a midfield 3 at the minute that will just provide the legs around him to probably just pick up those little bits of spaces and maybe just float around a little bit more, which has been encouraging, and depth in the midfield as well. So if there are a couple of injuries, it's not going to be a case that that Bannon's going to have to be flogged or anything like that. In games towards the end of last season, there were times where Bannon was brought off with 20 minutes to go, and that just doesn't happen at Sheffield Wednesday because he is such a talismanic figure. So, he's getting on a little bit in age now, and he needs to be managed a little bit, but certainly, like I say, he's got the quality to rip teams apart. I think I don't think that's too strong to say.
Yeah, he's certainly going to be a key man on the midfield battle on Saturday is going to be crucial, and obviously he's a big part of that. Talk about some of the transfers that's come in. It looks like a really good, in the end, like I said, it took a while, a good transfer window. It looks like three standout players really for the ones that everybody knows is Jack Hunt, Lewis Wing, obviously Lee Gregory most recently. Lewis Wing is the one that hurts the most. I'm not going to lie. Mick's not bothered, but
no.
That hurt. How's he done first 3 games this season? Does he fall into the category of one of those that is probably a championship player for you?
Yeah, certainly. I think from what he did, he had a good season. You might tell me wrong, guys, but
very
with
good.
Rotherham last season. And yeah, certainly, he's one of the players that I think can help to bring out the best in Bannon while adding a goal threat from midfield that Wednesday haven't had for 2 or 3 seasons. In the game so far, he's looked good. He's sort of pushed on as the most advanced of the midfield 3. Put a shift in. One guy that you didn't mention that might not be a standout name for some of the guys watching is Dennis Adeniran. He was a young lad at Everton that they've got in on a free. He was on loan at Wickham last season. And he's been absolutely outstanding in the game so far. Really, another one in that midfield 3 that has just run his legs off basically and looks a real quality addition between the boxes. So, yeah, Lewis Gregory. That's my cricket shout in there. Lee Gregory scored his first goal on Tuesday night against Fleetwood. Proper Lee Gregory goal, just basically a tap in, the sort of thing. So yeah, a number of the signings have sort of kicked off. Jack Hunter, you mentioned, has looked good on the right hand side. It's pushed Liam Palmer over onto the left, Dominic Orfer and Sam Hutchinson in the middle of defence. So I mean, you look at that back 4 with Bailey Peacock Farrell, who's on loan from Burnley. He's Northern Ireland's number 1. That back 5 on paper it looks like a championship defence, really. So yeah, certainly encouraging that so many of them have hit the ground running a little bit. Again, early days. I keep caveating it, but yeah, it's been encouraging so far.
What can we expect from Wednesday? What is the setup in formation? You mentioned, is it 4-3 in the middle? Is it a 4-3-3 that's set up, or 4-5-1? What's the first 3 games of the season? How has the setup's been? Yeah,
towards the end of last season, like I say, Darren Moore had probably the last quarter of the season. It chopped and changed quite a lot, which was a nightmare in the press box when you get the team news through and you're desperately trying to tell everyone on Twitter what's going on. You don't know yourself, but yeah, 4-3-3. The midfield 3 will rotate a little bit, which will give Bannon an opportunity to go further forward, and the same with Wing and Adeniran. And then a front 3. Marvin Johnson's played as a sort of an attacking winger, if you like, and Adeniran actually on Tuesday night against Fleetwood was sort of tucked in on the right hand side. But I'd expect on Saturday, I think, Gregory to start again, and perhaps there might be a couple. They've got a lad on loan from Wolves called Theo Corbeanu. He's a really exciting player and someone that Darren Moore himself has sort of said is going to excite supporters. He's a bit of a flair player, so whether we'll see him or not, he's played yet. He's been ill and bits and bobs. But yeah, I'd expect a 4-3-3 and just watch out for that midfield 3 to keep rotating in terms of where they're all playing.
It should be an interesting battle. Both teams pretty good defensively. We've considered one 95th minute goal, which was offside. If Mick'll sort of chirping with that, and obviously Wednesday have not conceded any, so it's sort of set up for 0-0, really, isn't it? Or 3-3.
Yeah.
Another classic South Yorkshire derby. It'll pull the pants off us, no doubt. Yeah.
I'll settle for 0-0, to be honest.
Would you?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would. You know me and derbies. I hate local derbies. I can't stand them. So if we can if both teams can get away without any bragging rights, happy days for me. And we'll get our points elsewhere.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
Fans, the first time the auction for us with fans back in. I mean, you could come last season. Like, the atmosphere on Saturday should be a full house. It should be electric. The atmosphere with both full ends.
Yeah, I was really excited at that. I think your guys' media team put out that there was sort of 500 tickets remaining. So I can imagine they'll go pretty quickly. Yeah. Certainly, the number of tweets that I've seen from Wednesday fans, has anyone got a ticket going? It's like gold dust, isn't it? So, yeah, I think it'll be the first game back with a proper, full, sold-out allocation with a proper, atmosphere to it. So, yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. I think, Paul Davis, I'm sure, has said similar, and a lot of media guys, we were the lucky ones. Absolutely, I'm not complaining for a second. We were unimaginably lucky to be in stadiums and watching football when everyone was at home, but it was rubbish. It really was. It's not sycophantic. This, I think people and companies like Sky get off on this. Football without fans is nothing, and parading it around and getting brownie points with that. I cannot tell you. It was. It might as well have been a very high quality pub game. With watching it, just sucked away all the life out of it. So, yeah, certainly from our point of view, it's fantastic to have you guys back. I'm thoroughly looking forward to Saturday.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've covered everything. Danny, anything else you want to ask? I think we've had a good little chat there. Anything else?
No, not really.
No.
Go on, Danny. I'll let you go first.
No, I'm just going to say sorry for me being away for a second there. There's someone at the door, so I'm back now. Hello.
You put a do not disturb sign on there, mate.
Well, I don't live in a hotel room, mate.
All right, okay. I will not go down that route.
Go on, Mick, you were going to ask something.
No, just about who's left side defensively on for Wednesday. Who is going to be the one that's going to have to put up with Chio?
Yeah, it'll be Liam Palmer. So quite a solid defensive, a defensive fullback, really. Not many thrills going forward. I think it'll probably be tucked in, Scotland international. So fairly steady, not got bags of pace. But have on the inside of Palmer, you would have had Sam Hutchinson, who obviously I'm guessing you guys will have come up against a few times, but he went off injured at half time, so it'll be interesting. It might well be Lewis Gibson, he's a loanee from Everton, or it might be Shea Dunkley, who's the lad that signed from Wigan the start of last season and didn't play too much. So yeah, I'd expect to change maybe at centre half alongside Dominic Iorfa, but be interesting whether Iorfa gets moved around because he's the one with the pace in the back four. He really is lightning quick. He's got massive recovery ability as well. So I think he'll be a key man to go up against him.
Yeah, there's some interesting battles. Chio's for us 3 games in has been unplayable for most games, so you wouldn't be surprised to get Iorfa cover the left-hand side of the defence. The midfield 3, our midfield 3 have been superb so far this season. But as we've already mentioned, both defences have been superb. So it could be an interesting game. It could be an absolute dull 0-0 and nothing happens. But
nailed on, absolutely nailed on.
Exactly. Yeah, looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it. Thank you for doing this, Alex. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure, guys. Absolute pleasure. Anytime.
And thank you all for watching on YouTube. We really do appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give us a like on the video, and our podcast will be out Friday morning. So if you haven't listened to that yet when watching this, get on it. Thank you, Mick. Thank you, Danny. It's been a pleasure as always.
No time. Thank you.
Pringle looking towards Agard. Ravel, ambitious.